Okay, we're going to play start, bench, cut, according to fantasy football. So I'm going to spin the wheel 3 times. I'm going to choose the quarterback that I start, bench, or cut. In terms of fantasy football, because obviously it's different from actual football. So I'm going to do that for quarterback, wide receivers twice, running back twice, and the tight end and defense. So let's start. So you have your first team. The first quarterback is going to be ooh, the LA Chargers. So Justin Herbert, that's a very good fantasy option. Always reliable. Next up, you have the Commanders being Wentz or Heineke. Don't even know who their starter is right now, or maybe even Howell and Russell Wilson. Okay, so obviously my first would definitely be Justin Herbert. Start Justin Herbert. Um, bench Russell Wilson, and then either Carson Wentz or Heineke. Cut them because you don't even know who's going to be starting. So for quarterback, I'd start Justin Herbert, bench Russell Wilson, and cut Heineke. And then for running backs, let's see. Running backs, we're going to do this twice. So first three, we're going to have, Josh Jacobs. He was probably a great fantasy steal last year. I had a team where I got him in the 5th round. It was great. Oh, Derrick Henry, that's just as good. Ooh, that's going to be a stacked. These trio is going to be stacked. And then you have Foreman. If Christian McCaffrey was still there, that would have been great. But Foreman's not a bad option, but still really great. It's first the start is going to be between Jacobs and Henry. Um, I gotta choose Derrick Henry. He's been good for multiple years and is always considered a top 5 pick. Bench Josh Jacobs had a great year last year, but I still take Derrick Henry over him. Just because Josh Jacobs might be switching teams and he's only had one good year, so I'm gonna bench Jacobs. And cut it has to be Foreman, and I don't think he's here, so I'm just gonna put McCaffrey, but that's gonna represent Foreman. And cut, he's too inconsistent. I'd normally keep him on the bench, but I have Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs, so Foreman would be a cut. But he can definitely be a boomer bust player that can have very great games. And then for wide receivers, let's see. So also like running back, gonna do this twice. Receivers, you have Jaguars. I'm gonna do either Kirk or Jerry Jones. I'm gonna go with Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk for Jaguars. Oh nope, New Orleans Saints. So Olave. Olave was pretty good last year. Uh, and then finally, the Commanders. That's a really interesting. Let's see. So I'm first gonna start off with gonna first I'm going. I'm gonna start Terry. He's always good. Never a bad option if I can find where he went. There you go. Um, and then bench. I'm a bench Olave. Don't think he's here, but I'm a bench Olave. Just saying. Um, he was good his rookie season, not great. He was good his rookie season, and I'm gonna take that upside. I can't find him, so it's gonna be Olave. I cannot find his picture anywhere. Too many people, too many wide receivers. Let's just take you, Michael Thomas, who has been irrelevant in fantasy for like 3 straight years. Put you representing Olave in the bench and cut. Unfortunately, Christian Kirk had a really consistent year last year. He's a slot guy, catches a lot of pass, but not a lot of yardage. But that's good if you have a PPR league. And I can't find his picture either, so here it's going to be Christian Kirk. And then receivers again. You have Carolina, DJ Moore. DJ Moore. He's an interesting guy. And then you have Jacksonville again. So again, I'm gonna use Zay Jones this time since Christian Kirk was used last time. And then you have come on, not the Jaguars again. Then you have the Houston Texans being Brandon Cooks. If I base this off of last year or this year? First, I'd go off with DJ Moore. He's a good receiver overall. Not the best fantasy guy because he's one of those big catches, one big catch, and just not great for PPR leagues. But he does have those big games. And then number 2 being Zay Jones. Where is he? I do not know where he went here. I do not know what his face looks like. But he had a few good games down the stretch for Jacksonville. Um, wasn't really relevant until this year, so I'm gonna put him on bench here. And then finally, Brandon Cooks. Before last year, he was always a consistent person, consistent wide receiver that was always consistent. But I have to put him in cut now. Um, I have to put him in cut because his upside is just way too low. He had a horrible fantasy season last year, so I'm gonna have to put Brandon Cooks in cut. So on to tight ends. That was a really good receiver round without any superstars. First tight end. Tight ends were kind of irrelevant last year. Goddard. Oh, Goddard. Who not fortunately not Pitts. He was. I think he was underrated as a tight end last year. Number 2 would be New Orleans Saints. Was it Johnson? He was always on like the top waiver for the tight end. Johnson. I don't remember his first. I think that was his name. And number 3, the Lions. I do not know whoever their backup was after their backup after Hawkinson. Don't know his name, but he actually wasn't bad, but in fantasy he was irrelevant. So star definitely be Goddard. If I Yes, he was. I think he was underrated as a fantasy tight end last year. He was great through his like before he got injured and after he came back from injury, he was still continuing to be great. I'm so glad I drafted him in like half my league because he was good and probably the best tight end behind Kelsey in terms of fantasy last year at least. And then bench, I'd have to put this is Troutman, but I think their Saints starting tight end is Johnson. He was okay. He was pretty much a waiver tight ends that you picked up if you had like Pitts who got injured. That would be the guy you would pick up. Wasn't great, not bad, just a waiver guy. And then finally, you have the Lions tight end after Hawkinson got traded away. Hawkinson himself was very good. Inconsistent at first, but once he got traded to Minnesota, he was good. But I don't know who the Lions backup was, but I think he did a pretty good job, but just not in fantasy. And then finally, you have defenses. So let's see. First defense, we have Carolina Panthers. Don't remember much about them. Second, Chicago Bears. Oh God. And then finally, the third we have the Chargers. Oh God, those are all three bad defenses. Oh. Start I'd actually go with Carolina. I think they have the youngest defense and do have their good games at times and bad games at times. And I think I'll take the Carolina up for next year over the Chargers or the Bears. For bench, I have the Chargers. They were good. They were injured most of the way, but down the stretch, they were like a shutdown defense down the stretch. And if you pick them up like during the playoffs and the championship, I think they did really well for you. But for most of the season, they were horrible. So I have them in my bench. Keep them on the bench because of how um, injured they were. And then cut Bears. They were awful defense in fantasy and in real life. So there you have it. That's my start, bench, and my cut. So hope you enjoy.